Once again, the headlines are full of pay per mile, and it's no surprise really that we are going to end up with some kind of pay per mile scheme. The UK government makes an absolute fortune from the motorist on petrol, and we're going to look at just how much petrol is taxed. In fact, to use your petrol car, you're actually paying a triple taxation, and we're just going to dissect that in this video. And thinking about the aims of getting 30, 40, 50% of all cars on the road to run exclusively on electric power, there's going to be a considerable dent in revenue from the motorist, and the motorist has been quite an easy target really. We need our cars to get around. Cars have very much become part of our lives and our culture, and with the move away from combustion engines to electric vehicles, the revenue that the governments are getting from these vehicles is dramatically lower than it was. So it's no surprise really that a lot of these cars that were free to tax and work out a lot cheaper to run are actually going to end up with some sort of pay per mile scheme. And you can almost guarantee that once a pay per mile scheme is introduced, it's going to be expanded, affecting other cars, and the rates charged are also going to increase each year, probably in line with inflation, maybe even more than that in some cases. So two certainties in life are death and taxes. And that's certainly true of the car owner. A lot of people feel that drivers are being taxed off the roads. I'm sure it would be nice to think that all of the money that drivers are paying in tax is going back into the road network, improving the infrastructure, covering up all of the potholes and making repairs to our roads. Let me know if that's the case in your area. So we've spoken about the vehicle taxation. So every year in the UK we have to tax our vehicle, and the tax rates are going up. For some people it's going up a lot. For a lot of people it's going to be a minor increase in line with inflation. The ballpark for most people driving most cars that watch this channel is probably about £190 per year. But there's another tax that we don't even think about. That is the tax that we pay on the fuel that we use. So here in the UK we are currently charged 52.95 pence per litre in fuel duty. We also then pay value added tax. So every time something is sold, you pay 20% of the cost of the sale price in tax. So you're actually paying value added tax on top of this 52.95 pence fuel tax. So different types of fuel have different levy rates. So we're just talking about petrol engines and diesel engines. And I've crunched a few numbers, but we need to make some assumptions just to establish a baseline. Obviously, the price of fuel will fluctuate throughout the year. So I'm working on a fuel price of £1.36 per litre. And we're going to assume that our car does 40 miles to the gallon. Now, to get a ballpark for how much the fuel is costing us and how much tax we are paying each year just to drive that car for the mileage, we're going to look at some different mileage brackets, because we all do very, very different mileages. So you'll generally fall into the low, the average or the high mileage category. The low mileage category is 6,000 miles per year. So your total fuel cost is £930.88. The fuel duty you're paying is £361.07, and the VAT is £155.15. So the total taxation for your 6,000 miles per year is £516.22. So moving up to the average driver, so we're looking at 12,000 miles per year. The total fuel cost is £1,861.76. You've paid £722.15 in fuel duty, and you've paid value added tax of £310.29. So the total tax paid for your 12,000 miles a year is £1,032.44. So now we come to the high mileage driver. So we've set that to 20,000 miles per year. So each year you'll be spending £3,102.93 on fuel. The fuel duty paid will be £1,203.58, and the value added tax is £517.16. So the total annual tax for your 20,000 miles comes to £1,720.73. Is it fair? Well, personally, I kind of prefer to be paying for the amount of fuel I'm using. So if I drive a really sporty car, I'm polluting more, I'll pay more in tax as a deterrent. and that might encourage me to drive a little more economically. But I've also got the option of not using that car all the time. So the annual tax that we pay, it's just an arbitrarily set figure. So someone paying that amount who only does 3,000 miles per year is proportionally paying a lot more than someone at one of the higher taxation bands that's doing 20 or 30,000 miles per year. So adding taxation to the fuel spreads the cost. So those that use the roads more, those that use their cars more, those that pollute more are paying more. So let me know if you think it would be better to just move to a system where the taxation is included in the fuel and we've got the option of not using our car as much and driving economically. And if we want to use fuel and drive the car and have fun with it, we'll pay the tax that's associated with that. We're not just paying to have a car on the road without necessarily even driving it. So it's not just the UK. Most countries have some form of vehicle taxation system, and I'm not an expert in other countries, so please let me know what it's like in your area. So in Canada, it's about 10 cents per litre of gasoline and 4 cents per litre of diesel, but different provinces do levy different rates as well. So if you're in Ontario, the total tax you pay is about 24.7 cents per litre. So in the United States, you're looking at a federal tax of about 18.4 cents per litre, and then states add their own rates on top of that. I think California is probably one of the highest at nearly 67 cents per litre. Over in Europe, the story is very much the same. In France, you're paying about 65 cents per litre. And I understand that Germany has one of the highest tax rates in Europe when it comes to fuel duty, at about 66 cents per litre. But let's just stand back and say we need to pay taxes. We have to fund the government for the services that they provide. But what's the fairest way of getting those taxes? Let me know in the comments what your solution is. If you were in charge of things, how would you treat the motorist? What would your ideas be that could fix the tax system and make life easier for motorists? If you're a business user, you're probably running a fleet of vehicles, you're doing quite high mileages, so the fuel for a business user is considerably higher. The overheads that they're running is much higher because they're doing more miles, so the taxation cost is proportionally higher. So would you lower the rates for businesses? Would you charge more for businesses? The amount that businesses pay in tax will also have a bearing on how expensive goods and services are. We buy stuff online and get it delivered. Those delivery drivers are paying fuel tax to get the packages transported to us. So it's a very, very complex system, but we just really wanted to make people aware of all the different avenues that the motorist is paying tax for just driving a car or owning a car. On TorqueCars website, I've created a fuel tax calculator so you can enter your annual mileage, the cost of the fuel and your MPG, and it will factor in all of these things and tell you exactly how much tax you are spending per year on your car. And you might also need the MPG calculator to arrive at some of the figures you need to use the tax calculator. So they're both free tools. I've found them very useful myself, which is why I created them, and they're up there for everyone to use. So feel free. The link is going to be in the description at the bottom of this video, so be sure to check those out. So please boot the like button if you found this useful. A great way to save tax, especially this semi-hidden drive per mile or drive per litre of fuel tax that we've got at the moment, is to use less fuel, driving economically. So I've done a video on driving economically. If you'd like to improve your MPG and you'd like to get into this dark world of hypermiling, then that's the video you want to check out. And I've also lined this playlist up for you that you should find really interesting. Thanks for watching. See you in these next videos. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. We'd hate you to miss out on all the great content we've got planned. Thanks for watching.